With half of his proofs for God's existence in shambles, Bob Dutko, Christian radio talk show host and apologist, trudges on with his number 6 reason for assuming God is real.
The number 6 reason why a belief in God is in fact scientific, and that has to do with the mathematical impossibility of life generating on its own.
We already discussed abiogenesis in part 3, but this time Dutko wants to make it sound like he has some sort of mathematical formula to support his earlier assertion. He goes into this incredibly complex and ridiculous example of shuffling a deck of cards to get just the right combination of those cards, and equates that with getting the right amino acids together to form the most basic protein, and so forth and so on, and concludes that it would take someone shuffling such a deck of cards X billion number of years to just accidentally stumble upon the right combination. But what he doesn't tell you is that a person shuffling a deck of cards like that just might stumble upon that perfect combination the first time they lay the cards out, or maybe even the second time. The fact is, that particular combination of cards is possible to generate randomly, and while the odds say there is a 1 in a bazillion chance you'll get it each time you shuffle it, there's still that chance you'll get it right there on the first or second try. But in the end, his example and mathematics are irrelevant. Dutko doesn't know the conditions required for abiogenesis, so he can't possibly calculate the odds of something like a self-replicating molecule forming in these conditions 3-something billion years ago on the primitive Earth. We all know that it is unlikely a hurricane will form over the Colorado Rockies because conditions for such an event aren't favorable. However, given the right conditions over the Atlantic Ocean, hurricane formation is far more likely. And since Dutko doesn't know the conditions necessary to form life, he's just employing Christian apologetic smoke and creationist mirrors meant to confuse gullible audiences into believing his alternative is the only option. There must be a God to pick those cards out just right to get life going. But even if we were to grant him the absurdity of his claim, what does that really gain him? Suppose he's right, and that the odds of life forming on the earth are impossible, and it needed a hand. Why should we suppose that hand is his God? In fact, he made no argument whatsoever for the Christian God with this sloppy example. The only thing that can be claimed from this so-called proof of God is that this God is a sort of progenitor of life. It needn't even be conscious. It could simply be a supernatural force which gets life started when certain conditions are right. Clearly, it is not the God of the Genesis creation story, speaking whole creatures into existence, fully formed, in a matter of hours. This God thing that can fulfill Dutko's need to have gotten life started is merely an impetus. How is such a thing worthy of worship?
Do you realize that if there's no God, and evolution is true, that organs would have had to gradually develop inside the human body as well as the bodies of animals?
With every breath, apologists like Dutko reveal how little they know about a subject they are pretending to criticize. Whole organs do not evolve in a human body. Successful systems are passed down from one generation to the next. For example, the so-called first human being, and every human being thereafter, didn't need to evolve its own backbone. Backbones go far back in evolutionary history and don't need to be continually reinvented. They can be modified via mutation and natural selection, but they are not re-evolved in each new species which has one. It's actually remarkable that you have to explain this to a person who is authoritatively trying to criticize the subject. It's astounding, really.
I saw an interesting question posed on a creation science website. Listen to this.
You know, I see a problem right there. Apologists would rather hang out on creationist web forums instead of going down to this building known as the library and check out scientific books on the subject they want to criticize. Instead of reading posts by other ignorant creationists, maybe these folks should spend some time striking up a conversation with a real scientist, or taking some university-level courses in biology, geology, and physics. Maybe then they wouldn't think questions like the following have any merit.
How did the heart, lungs, brain, stomach, veins, blood, kidneys, etc. develop in the first animal by slow, minute steps, and the animals survive while these changes were occurring?
Because they didn't all form together in the first animal. And if creationists asking such ignorant questions knew anything about evolution, they'd already know that. They'd also understand that systems get built over time, over many successive generations. Just open a book and read. It really is that simple. And then creationists wouldn't sound so stupid, asking something like,
did the first animal develop 10% of complete veins, then 20%, and on up to 100, with veins throughout its entire body and brain? Well, then how did the heart slowly develop in the animal and get attached to the veins in the right spot? How did the blood enter the system? The blood could not enter before the veins were complete, or it would spill out. So where did the blood come?